Welcome back, dear friends and story lovers. Tonight, we bring you a tale where love is tested, secrets come to light, and fate takes an unexpected turn. Every moment will pull you in deeper, and every choice could change everything. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments, and if this story touches your heart, like, subscribe, share it with someone who believes in true love, and hit the bell so you never miss the next chapter. Asterisk, the hospital bill trembled in Sophia Chen's hands as thunder cracked overhead, rain hammering the windows of their cramped apartment like bullets. 23 years old, dreams of marine biology drowning in debt that stretched beyond her comprehension. The number on the paper mocked her. More money than 3 generations of Chen fishermen had ever seen. Her mother Lin lay dying in the bedroom, fighting a blood disorder that demanded treatments only the capital could provide. Her father Roberto had already sacrificed everything, selling the fishing boat that had fed their family for decades. The salt-scented air of Porto Azul carried the stench of corporate conquest. Large shipping companies, swallowing local businesses whole. Mia, her mother whispered, using the Spanish endearment that always made Sophia's heart ache. You should be at university, not watching an old woman fade away. Sophia smoothed her mother's silver-streaked hair, lying with practiced ease. University can wait, Mama. You're going to get better. But 3 jobs weren't enough. Serving tourists, scrubbing office floors, mending nets for other fishermen. Nothing was ever enough anymore. The knock came during the storm's fury, when decent people stayed indoors. Sophia opened the door to find a woman in her 50s, immaculately dressed despite the weather. Gray hair pulled into a severe bun, dark. Eyes calculating and cold. Miss Chen, I am Carmen Velasco. I represent someone who wishes to help your family. Roberto appeared behind Sophia, his weathered hands still reeking of engine oil. We don't accept charity. Carmen's smile never reached her eyes. This isn't charity, Senator Chen, this is business. She settled into their threadbare living room. Like a queen among peasants, laying out an offer that made Sophia's blood freeze. My employer needs a wife. Not for love has no time for such complications. He needs someone intelligent, presentable, trustworthy for social functions. In return, your mother's medical expenses disappear. Your father receives a new fishing fleet.
Yes.
Sophia gets the finest education money can buy. The words hit like a physical blow. You're talking about arranged marriage. This isn't the 19th century. My employer is Rafael Montenegro. The name sucked all oxygen from the room. El Tiburón shark, the man who had transformed their sleepy fishing town into a shipping empire, crushing anyone who stood in his way. 35 years old, ruthlessly powerful, and utterly without mercy. Carmen continued as if discussing the weather. Separate bedrooms, no expectations of intimacy unless you choose otherwise. A generous allowance, the best schools complete. Freedom to pursue your interests. The only requirements are discretion, loyalty, and playing the devoted wife in public. Sophia's voice cracked. And if I refuse? Carmen stood, pulling her coat against the storm. Then your mother dies slowly, or your father loses everything he has left. And you spend the rest of your life wondering if you could have saved them. After Carmen left, silence filled the apartment, except for Lin's labored breathing and the distant crash of waves against harbor rocks. Sophia pressed her palm against the cool window glass, watching the gray ocean that had defined her entire life. Tomorrow, she would meet the man who had bought her future. In 2 weeks, she would become Mrs. Rafael Montenegro. She made herself a silent promise in the darkness. Whatever happened, whatever sacrifices lay ahead, she would not lose herself completely. Somehow, she would survive this arrangement. The storm had passed, but Sophia knew the real tempest was just beginning. The black Mercedes that collected Sophia was worth more than her family had earned in 5 years. Pedro, the middle-aged driver with kind eyes, helped her into leather seats that smelled of wealth and power. Through tinted windows, she watched her humble neighborhood disappear into memory. Rafael Montenegro's estate perched on a cliff like a modern fortress, white walls and red tiles gleaming against the endless blue horizon. Tropical gardens burst with color around the property. A private dock extended into deep water, where a yacht worth millions rocked in the gentle swells. Carmen met her at the massive front door. "You look nervous?" "That's natural, but remember, mister, Montenegro values composure above all else. He despises emotional displays and respects directness." The interior stole Sophia's breath. Marble floors, reflected crystal chandeliers, oil paintings of seascapes lined the hallways, and everything was arranged with museum-like precision. Fresh orchids in crystal vases, books aligned perfectly on custom shelves, artwork she recognized from her art history classes. "He's waiting in his study," Carmen said, leading her down a corridor that felt endless. "Remember, this is a business meeting. He wants to ensure you understand your role and his expectations." Carmen knocked on heavy wooden doors. A deep voice commanded them to enter. Rafael Montenegro stood behind a massive desk, his back to the door, speaking rapid Spanish into a phone. Taller than she remembered, probably 6'3" with broad shoulders that filled his expensive suit perfectly. His black hair was shorter than in newspaper photos, and when he turned to face her, the intensity of his dark brown eyes hit like a physical force. He was handsome in a dangerous way. Sharp cheekbones, strong jaw, lips that looked like they rarely smiled. Faint lines around his eyes suggested he was older than his 35 years in experience, if not in time. "Miss Chen," he said, his voice carrying that slight accent she remembered from the town council meeting. "Thank you for coming." "Thank you for helping my family," Sophia replied, surprised by how steady her own voice sounded. Oh, gestured to a chair across from his desk. The study was clearly his private domain, leather-bound books in multiple languages, ship models, photographs of cargo vessels. The scent of aged wood and expensive cigars hung in the air. "Carmen has explained the arrangement," he said, settling into his chair with predatory grace. "I want to be clear about expectations." His eyes never left her face as he spoke. "This marriage serves a specific purpose. I need a wife who can navigate social situations, represent my interests at charity functions, and provide the appearance of stability that certain business ventures require. You need financial security for your family. What do you get out of this besides a trophy wife?" The words slipped out before she could stop them. Something flickered in his same amusement. "Respect. Direct. I like that." He leaned back in his chair. "I get a partner who understands that this is business, not romance. Someone intelligent enough to hold conversations with investors' wives, beautiful enough to be seen with me in public, and practical enough to honor the terms of our agreement." The clinical way he spoke about her made Sophia's skin crawl, but she forced herself to maintain eye contact. "And in private we live separate lives, travel frequently. For business, you'll have complete freedom to pursue your education and interests. The only requirement is discretion." He stood and moved to the window overlooking the ocean. "I should warn you, Miss Chen, people will have opinions about our marriage. They'll assume you're a gold digger, that I'm buying a young wife to stroke. My ego. Let them talk. What matters is that we understand each other." Sophia joined him at the window, studying his profile. "Why me? You could have anyone, because you're marrying me for the right reasons." His voice was quiet, almost gentle. "Not for love or romance or fairy tale dreams. You're doing this too. Save your family. That kind of loyalty and sacrifice, I can respect that." The setting sun painted the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, the same colors that had filled her childhood dreams of traveling the world, studying marine life, falling in love with someone who shared her passion. Now she was about to marry a man who saw the ocean only as a highway for his cargo ships. "The wedding is in 10 days, Rafael said, turning back to his desk. "Carmen will handle the arrangements. You'll move in here immediately afterward."
Yes.
If summoned, Carmen appeared in the doorway. "The car is ready to take you home, Miss Chen." Sophia nodded, but as she reached the door, Rafael's voice stopped her. "Sophia." It was the first time he'd used her first name. "I know this isn't what you dreamed of, but I promise you this, Seal. Keep my word. Your mother will receive the best care available. Your father will prosper. and you'll have opportunities you never imagined. This powerful stranger who held her future in his hands. And what if I can't go through with it? What if I run? His expression didn't change, but his eyes grew colder. Then you'll discover why they call me El Tiburón. The ride home passed in silence, but Sophia's mind raced. In 10 days, she would become Mrs. Rafael Montenegro. The question that haunted her wasn't whether she could survive the arrangement, was whether she could survive him. The wedding took place in the capital's oldest cathedral, a Gothic masterpiece that had witnessed centuries of both love and obligation. Sophia stood before the altar in a designer gown that cost more than her father's boat, ivory silk and hand-sewn, pearls that made her feel like she was wearing someone else's skin. Raphael waited at the altar in a black tuxedo, devastating and remote. When their eyes met, she saw nothing, no warmth, no regret, no emotion at all. Just the calculating gaze of a man conducting business. The ceremony was small but elegant, filled with Raphael's business associates and their wives who studied Sophia with barely concealed curiosity. Her parents sat in the front row, her father uncomfortable in his rented suit. Her mother pale but smiling, already showing improvement from the treatments Raphael had arranged. Do you, Sophia Chen, take Rafael Montenegro to be your lawfully wedded husband? The words felt like lead in her mouth. I do. Raphael's hand was steady as he slipped the platinum wedding band onto her finger. A perfect complement to the massive diamond engagement ring that had appeared without warning 3 days earlier. When he kissed her, it was brief, formal, completely devoid of passion. The reception was held at the capital's most exclusive hotel, crystal and gold reflecting the light of 1,000 candles. Sophia smiled and played her part, accepting congratulations from strangers who called her lucky while their eyes calculated her worth. You look beautiful, Raphael murmured during their obligatory first dance, his hand firm at her waist. I look like a doll, she replied quietly. An expensive doll. His lips curved slightly. That's what they expect to see. As they moved through the choreographed steps, Sophia caught glimpses of her reflection in the ballroom mirrors. She barely recognized Herselfair swept into an elaborate updo. Makeup applied by professionals, jewelry that sparkled with every movement. She looked like she belonged in this world of wealth and power. But inside, she was still the fisherman's daughter who dreamed of swimming with dolphins. The evening stretched endlessly until finally, mercifully, it was over. The newlyweds were whisked away in a limousine to Raphael's estate, where separate bedrooms awaited as promised. Thank you, Sophia said as they stood in the marble foyer, suddenly awkward despite having legally bound their lives together. For what? For keeping your word about my mother. The doctors say the treatment is working. Raphael loosened his tie, the first crack in his polished facade. I always keep my word, Sophia. Remember that. Disappeared down the hallway toward his wing of the house, leaving her alone with Carmen, who escorted her to a suite that was bigger than her family's entire apartment. A 4-poster bed dominated the space, draped in silk the color of seafoam. French doors opened onto a private balcony overlooking the ocean. Tomorrow, your real education begins, Carmen said, laying out a schedule. Deportment lessons, language, tutors, charity committee meetings. Mr. Montenegro expects his wife to be flawless in public. For 3 months, Sophia played the part perfectly. She learned to navigate society dinners, to make small talk with politicians' wives, to smile graciously. While being photographed at charity galas, she took French lessons and art history classes, expanded her knowledge of wine and literature and classical music. But she also began to notice things. Late-night phone calls in Spanish that made Raphael's voice hard and dangerous. Meetings in his study with men who looked like they carried guns. Cargo ships that arrived in the harbor without appearing on any shipping manifests. And then there was Marcus. Marcus Delgado was Raphael's head of security, a man in his 40s, with military bearing and eyes that missed nothing. He was also the first person in Raphael's world to treat Sophia like a human being rather than an expensive accessory. You're not what I expected, he said one afternoon, as he drove her back from a charity luncheon. What did you expect? Someone who'd be satisfied with the jewelry and the clothes and the empty conversations? He glanced at her in the rear view mirror. But you ask questions. You pay attention. Dangerous. Dangerous to whom? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. To yourself, Mrs. Montenegro. There are things about your husband's business that you're better off not knowing. But Sophia had never been good at leaving questions unanswered. That night she found Rafael in his study, still in his business suit despite the late hour. He was reading contracts in what looked like Portuguese, a glass of expensive whiskey. At his elbow? You're up late, he said without looking up. So are you. She settled into the chair across from his desk, the same one she'd sat in during their first meeting. I've been thinking about our arrangement. Having second thoughts? His tone was casual, but she caught the slight tension in his shoulders. No, but I want to renegotiate. That made him look up. Excuse me, I want to know about your business. The real business, not the sanitized version you show at dinner parties. Rafael set down his papers with deliberate care. That's not part of our agreement. Neither was me being locked out of half your life. Sophia leaned forward. I'm your wife, Rafael. Even if it's just for show, people are going to assume I know things. If I don't, if I accidentally say the wrong thing or ask the wrong questions, I could compromise whatever it is you're really doing. He studied her for a long moment, those dark eyes calculating. What makes you think there's anything to know? Because I'm not stupid. Her voice was sharper than she'd intended. Cargo ships that don't appear on manifests. Meetings with men who look like mercenaries. Phone calls in 3 different languages that make you pace like a caged animal. Rafael stood abruptly and moved to the window, his back to her. When he spoke, his voice was very quiet. There are some doors that can't be closed once they're open, Sophia. No, some knowledge that changes everything. Then maybe it's time I grew up. He turned around, and for the first time since she'd known him, she saw something vulnerable in his expression. Something that looked almost like fear. If I tell you the truth, he said slowly, there's no going back. You'll be part of this whether you want to be or not. Sophia thought about her old life-length cramped apartment, the impossible bills, the slow death of her dreams. Then she thought about her mother, healthy and laughing again. Her father, proud and prosperous with his new boats. She had already sold her soul to save them. What was left to lose? Tell me, she said. Rafael poured himself another whiskey, his hand not quite steady. I'm not just in shipping, Sophia. I move things for people who can't use traditional channels. Weapons, sometimes, information, people who need to disappear or reappear in different countries. The words hit her like cold water. You're a smuggler, among other things. He drained his glass in one swallow. I built this empire by being willing to do what other men wouldn't. By taking risks they couldn't stomach. By making deals with devils they were too afraid to meet. And the government? The police? His laugh was bitter. I have friends in many places. Judges who owe me favors. Politicians who depend on my contributions. Customs officials who find their families well taken care of. Sophia felt the world shifting beneath her feet. Laws are you breaking? Does it matter? He moved closer, his eyes never leaving her face. This is who I am, Sophia. This is what your family's salvation cost. Can you live with that? The rational part of her mind screamed that she should run, should call the police, should do anything except sit there calmly processing the fact that she'd married a criminal. But another part, a part she'd never known, instead found his honesty. It's almost refreshing after months of pretty lies and social facades. My turn to ask questions, she said finally. Rafael nodded, resignation in his expression. Have you ever killed anyone? Yes? Do you enjoy it? No. You hurt innocent people? He was quiet for a long moment. I try not to. It got in my world. Innocence is a luxury few can afford. Sophia stood and walked to the window where he'd been standing, looking out at the ocean that had always been her refuge. The water was black under the moonless sky, hiding its depths and its dangers. I have conditions, she said, without turning around. Name them. No children get hurt, ever. And no drugs. Greed. And I want to be useful. Really useful not. Just a pretty face at charity functions. When she turned back, Rafael was watching her with something that might have been respect. You continue to surprise me, Mrs. Montenegro. Good, she said, moving toward the door. I'd hate to be predictable. She was almost out of the study when his voice stopped her. Sophia. When she looked back, his expression was unreadable. Welcome to the family business. As she climbed the stairs to her room, Sophia realized that everything had changed in the span of a single conversation. She was no longer just Rafael Montenegro's purchased wife. She was his partner. God help her, she was looking forward to finding out what that meant. 6 months into their marriage, Sophia had become someone she barely recognized. She could decode shipping manifests, spot falsified customs documents, and charm information from dock workers in 3 languages. Rafael had been true to his word, was useful, integral to operations that spanned the Caribbean and beyond. But she had also fallen in love with her husband. It happened gradually, dangerously. The way he trusted her with secrets that could destroy him. How his rare smiles transformed his entire face. The gentleness in his voice when he thought no one was listening. The way he still asked permission before entering her space, respecting boundaries even as they became meaningless. The night everything changed started like any other. The Santiago shipment arrives tomorrow, Rafael said over dinner, his fingers drumming against his wine glass. Victor Kozlov's people will handle the transfer, but I want you to observe. Learn how he operates. Sophia nodded, though something in his tone made her uneasy. Victor Kozlov was a Russian arms dealer with dead eyes and a reputation for brutality. Rafael did business with him because the profits were astronomical, but she'd seen how tense her husband became before every meeting. Is everything all right? She asked. Rafael's smile was forced. Everything's fine. It's just another business transaction. But at 2 a.m, she awoke to find him gone. His side of the bed was cold. They'd been sharing a bed for the past month, though neither had acknowledged the shift from their original arrangement. She found him in his study, surrounded by files and photographs scattered across his desk. His shirt was unbuttoned, his usually perfect hair disheveled. What's wrong? She asked from the doorway. He looked up, and the expression in his eyes made her blood freeze. Go back to bed, Sophia. Not until you tell me what's happening. Rafael stood slowly, gathering the photographs. But not before she caught a glimpse of what they showed doing women, teenagers, their faces hollow with despair. Rafael, her voice was barely a whisper. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw. Kozlov's expanding his business. Human trafficking. He wants to use my shipping routes.
Oh.
The words hit her like a physical blow. And I told him no. But he's not the type to take rejection gracefully. Sophia moved closer, seeing the weight he carried in the set of his shoulders. What does that mean? It means he has something I want very badly. Raphael's laugh was bitter. My sister. The revelation shattered everything Sophia thought she knew. You have a sister? Isabella? She's 20, studying art in Barcelona. Was studying? His hands clenched into fists. Kozlov took her 3 days ago. Oh, God. Sophia sank into a chair, understanding flooding through her. He's using her as leverage. 1 shipment, Rafael said, his voice mechanical. He claims that's all he wants. Use my routes once to move his cargo to Miami and Isabella comes home. You can't trust him, I know. The anguish in his voice made her heart break. But she's my sister, Sophia. She's all I have left of my family. Sophia studied his face, seeing the boy he must have been. Protective, desperate, willing to sacrifice. Anything for the people he loved, just as she had been. There has to be another way. I've been trying to find one for 3 days. He showed her a photograph of a young woman with his dark eyes and a brilliant smile. But his security is too good, his people too numerous. And if I move against him directly, Isabella dies. A terrible idea began forming in Sophia's mind. What if you didn't have to choose? Rafael looked up sharply. What do you mean the shipment comes in tomorrow? Kozlov's people handle the transfer. But what if something went wrong? What if the cargo was intercepted before it left the dock? The authorities would never move without concrete evidence, and Kozlov's too careful to leave any. Then we give them evidence. A lie. Sophia's heart was pounding, but her voice was steady. Anonymous tip. Detailed shipping information, timing down to the minute. They bust the operation. Kozlov loses his cargo and his credibility. He'll be too busy dealing with law enforcement to worry about revenge. Rafael stared at her. That's impossible. The timing would have to be perfect. And if anything went wrong, if they traced it back to us, then we'd better make sure they don't. Sophia, no. Absolutely not. If Kozlov even suspected he won't, she moved to stand behind his chair, her hands on his shoulders. Because I'll be the one to make the call. I won't let you put yourself at risk. It's too late for that. Her voice was quiet but firm. I chose this life, Rafael. I chose you. That means I choose to help save your sister. He turned in his chair to face her, his hands coming up to frame her face. Don't understand what? You're asking, I understand that you'd do it for me. It's for my family. You already did. Something shifted in his expression, surprise, gratitude, and something deeper that made her pulse quicken. I love you, he said quietly. The words hung between them like a bridge neither had dared to cross before. I know, she whispered. I love you too. He kissed her then, desperate and gentle at the same time, and she tasted fear and hope and something that felt like salvation. The next evening, everything went according to plan. The anonymous tip was detailed and accurate, the timing perfect. Federal agents swarmed the dock, just as Kozlov's people were loading their human cargo onto Rafael's ship. Arrests were made, evidence secured, and the victims were safely rescued. Sophia watched from a distance, her heart hammering as she saw Rafael playing his part, perfect life, shocked businessman whose ships had been used without his knowledge. The cooperative citizen helping law enforcement understand what had happened. But as they drove away from the chaos, her phone rang. Very impressive, Mrs. Montenegro. Victor Kozlov's accented voice was calm, almost amused. But did you really think I wouldn't have contingencies? Rafael grabbed the phone from her hand. Kozlov, your wife is quite clever, but not clever enough. I know it was her who made the call. Let Isabella go. You lost your shipment. Even. Kozlov laughed. My friend, we are just beginning. You cost me $20 million and made me look like a fool in front of very dangerous people. There must be consequences. What do you want? Your cooperation. But now, the price has gone up. His voice hardened. 1 year of full partnership. My cargo, your routes, no questions asked. Or both your sister and your wife will discover what happens to people who cross Victor Kozlov. The line went dead. Rafael threw the phone against the window, the screen shattering like their carefully laid plans. He has photos, he said quietly. Of you at the payphone where you made the call. Of us together planning this. He knows everything. Sophia felt the world collapsing around her. What have I done? You tried to save my sister. His voice was hollow. And now I might lose both of you. They drove home in silence, but Sophia's mind was racing. She had wanted to be useful, to be Rafael's true partner. Instead, she had made everything worse. As they pulled into the estate's circular driveway, she made a decision that would either save them all or destroy her completely. Need to tell you something, she said as they stood in the marble foyer. Rafael looked at her, exhaustion and despair written across his features. What? Before we married, Carmen wasn't the only one who came to see me. The words felt like razor blades in her throat. The FBI approached me 6 months ago. They wanted me to get close to you, to gather information about your operations. The color drained from Rafael's face. What? I said no. I told them I wouldn't. Help them. She was crying now, tears she couldn't stop. But they said they'd make my mother's medical care disappear. They'd destroy my father's new business. They'd make sure my family lost everything unless I cooperated. Rafael stepped back as if she'd struck him. So you've been reporting to them this entire time? I swear to you, I never gave them anything. I've been stalling, giving them nothing useful. But Rafael, her voice broke. They're going to move soon, with or without my help. And now, with what happened tonight, they have everything they need. The silence stretched between them, like a chasm. Get out, he said quietly. Rafael, please, get out. His voice echoed through the foyer. Pack your things and go, now, before I do something we'll both regret. Sophia stood frozen, watching the man she loved transform into someone she didn't recognize. Cold, furious, utterly without mercy. This changes nothing about Isabella, she whispered. I'll still help you save her. You've done enough, he said, turning away from her. You've destroyed everything. She climbed the stairs to pack her few belongings. Sophia realized that, in trying to save everyone, she had lost the only thing that mattered. She had lost Rafael. Tomorrow, Victor Kozlov would make them all pay for her failure. Sophia spent 3 sleepless days in a small hotel room, her phone silent, her heart breaking with every passing hour. She had tried calling Rafael dozens of times, but his number went straight to voicemail. Marcus wouldn't take her calls. Even Carmen had disappeared. On the 4th morning, her phone finally rang. Mrs. Montenegro. Victor Kozlov's voice was smooth as silk. I trust you've been enjoying your little vacation. What do you want? To offer you a deal? No? You see, your husband has been most uncooperative. He refuses to meet my terms, even to save his precious sister. Sophia's blood ran cold. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that Isabella Montenegro has been my guest for a week now. Her brother seems more concerned with his wounded pride than with her welfare. That's not true. He loves her, perhaps. But he loves his reputation more. He won't deal with me after your little stunt embarrassed us both. Kozlov's chuckle was ice cold. But you might be more reasonable. I'm listening. Meet me tonight. Pier 47, midnight. Come alone, and bring proof that you can deliver what? I want access to your husband's shipping routes, his security codes, his complete trust. Do this, and Isabella goes free. But if I refuse, then a very beautiful young woman disappears forever, and Rafael Montenegro spends the rest of his life knowing that his pride cost his sister her life. The line went dead. Sophia stared at the phone, her hands trembling. She could call the FBI, but they'd been trying to bring down Rafael for months and would gladly sacrifice Isabella to get him. She could try to reach Rafael again, but his silence made it clear that he no longer trusted her with anything, let alone his sister's life. That left only one option. She spent the day planning, remembering everything Rafael had taught her about thinking like a criminal. By evening, she had everything she needed. Pier 47 was deserted at midnight, fog rolling in from the ocean to shroud the empty warehouses in ghostly silence. Sophia arrived early, positioning herself in the shadows where she could observe Kozlov's approach. He came with 3 men, all armed, all looking like they'd killed before. Isabella was with them, pale and frightened but alive, her hands bound behind her back. Mrs. Montenegro, Kozlov called out, "Show yourself." Sophia stepped into the pale circle of a streetlight, a briefcase in her hand. "Let her go first," she said. "I think not. First, you show me what you've brought." Sophia opened the briefcase, revealing what looked like shipping schedules, security protocols, and access codes. Everything you asked for. Your file's complete. Shipping network, including routes your people haven't discovered yet. Kozlov gestured to one of his men, who approached to examine the contents. After a moment, he nodded to his boss. "Very good," Kozlov said, "though I confess, I'm surprised. Your husband was quite convinced you would never betray him again." "My husband threw me away like garbage," Sophia replied, putting bitter hatred into her voice. "If he won't save his sister, I will. And if I can profit from his stupidity, so much the better." "Excellent, then we have a deal." But as Kozlov's man reached for the briefcase, Sophia smiled. "Actually, we don't." The pier erupted in chaos as federal agents emerged from their hiding places, assault rifles, trained on Kozlov and his men. Spotlights blazed to life, turning night into harsh, unforgiving day. "FBI, drop your weapons." Kozlov spun toward Sophia, his face twisted with rage. "You treacherous bitch. The documents are fake," she said calmly as his men surrendered their weapons. "But the wire I've been wearing isn't. Every word of this conversation has been recorded." Kozlov was led away in handcuffs. He snarled over his shoulder. "You think you've won? Rafael Montenegro will never forgive you for this. You've destroyed any chance you had with him forever. I know, Sophia whispered. Agent Sarah Chen relation. Despite the shared surname approached, as her team secured the scene. She was a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and graying hair, the FBI agent who had first approached Sophia months ago. You did the right thing, she said quietly. Did I? Sophia watched as Isabella was reunited with her brother, who had arrived. With the federal task force, Rafael's eyes found hers across the chaos of the pier. Even at a distance, she could see the shock, the confusion, the dawning realization of what she had done. He started toward her, but Agent Chen stepped between them. Mr. Montenegro, we need to discuss your cooperation with this investigation. Cooperation? His voice was dangerously quiet. Your wife has provided us with everything we need to dismantle Kozlov's network. In exchange, we're prepared to offer you immunity for your testimony against his organization. Rafael's gaze never left Sophia's face. And if I refuse, we'll have to examine your business practices much more closely. I'm sure we'd find enough irregularities to keep you busy with legal proceedings for years. It wasn't really a choice, and they all knew it. 3 hours later, the pier was empty, except for Sophia and Rafael. Isabella had been taken to a hospital. For evaluation, the federal agents had departed with their evidence, and the fog had lifted to reveal the first pale hints of dawn. Why? Rafael's voice was hoarse with exhaustion. Because I love you. You destroyed everything I built. I saved your sister. Sophia's voice was steady, despite the tears streaming down her face. And I saved you. From what? From becoming something you couldn't live with. She moved closer, seeing the pain and confusion in his eyes. You would have made that deal with Kozlov. You would have helped him traffic those girls. It would have destroyed you piece by piece, until there was nothing. Left of the man I fell in love with, Rafael was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the ocean that had brought them together and torn them apart. The FBI will want everything, he said finally. Names, dates, shipping routes, my entire network. I know. I'll go to prison. Agent Chen says they'll recommend a reduced sentence in exchange for your cooperation. Maybe 5 years instead. Of 25 years. He laughed bitterly. And what happens to us? Sophia felt her heart shatter completely. There is no us anymore. You made that clear when you threw me out. I was angry. I felt betrayed. You were right to feel that way. She reached into her purse and pulled out her wedding ring, placing it gently in his palm. I lied to you from the beginning. Even if my reasons were good, even if I never gave them anything that could hurt you, I still lied. Rafael stared down at the platinum band that had bound them together. So this is it? We're finished? You're going to prison, Rafael? When you get out, you'll need to rebuild your entire life. You should do that without the weight of a wife who betrayed you. And what will you do? Go back to school. Study marine biology like I always planned. Try to become the person I was before I met you. You can't go back, he said quietly. Neither of us can. I know. Sophia stepped back, putting distance between them that felt like an ocean. But we can try to go forward. As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her one last time. Sophia. She didn't turn around, couldn't bear to see his face again. For what it's worth, he said, you were the best partner I ever had. 18 months. Later, Sophia stood on the deck of a research vessel in the Caribbean, her hair whipping in the salt breeze as she prepared to dive with a team studying coral reef restoration. The water was impossibly blue, teeming with the marine life she had always dreamed of protecting. She had finished her degree, earned her master's in record time, and landed a position with one of the world's most respected oceanographic institutions. Her parents were healthy and happy, her father's fishing business thriving under new environmental sustainability contracts. She should have been content. But as the research vessel passed the familiar coastline of Porto Azul, she found herself scanning the horizon for a glimpse of the estate where she had been briefly impossibly happy. Dr. Chen, one of her graduate students, approached with a tablet. We're getting some unusual readings from the deep water sensors. Sophia took the device, focusing on the data that showed unexpected marine activity in a protected zone near the coast. That's strange. Commercial shipping is banned in that area, which we reported to the Coast Guard. Before Sophia could answer, another boat appeared on the horizon. Not a research vessel or a Coast Guard cutter, but a sleek yacht that looked familiar despite the years that had passed. As it drew closer, she could make out a figure on the deckdole, dark-haired, wearing a white shirt that billowed in the wind. Her heart stopped. Rafael. He should have been in federal prison for another 2 years. But there he was, free, and apparently prosperous enough to own a yacht that probably cost more than her annual salary. Their eyes met across the water, and 17 months of carefully constructed emotional walls crumbled in an instant. The yacht pulled alongside the research vessel, and Rafael called out to her captain permission to come aboard. "I have information about your sensor readings." Before anyone could object, he had crossed between the vessels with the same predatory grace she remembered. "Hello, Sophia. You're supposed to be in prison." His smile was the same devastating expression that had haunted her dreams. "Good behavior. In a few technicalities my lawyers discovered in the federal case. What are you doing here? Would you believe I'm interested in marine conservation?" Despite everything, she found herself fighting a smile, not for a second. Smart woman. He moved closer, and she caught the familiar scent of his cologne mixed with sea salt. "The truth is, I've been looking for you." "Why?" "Because I have a business proposition." The words hit her like cold water, bringing back memories of another business proposition that had changed both their lives forever. "I'm not interested in your kind of business anymore, Rafael. This is different." He pulled an official-looking document from his jacket. "I've been working with the government to shut down human trafficking routes throughout the Caribbean. Turns out my knowledge of smuggling networks makes me very valuable to law enforcement." Sophia stared at the Paperwork Department of Justice letterhead, her husband's name listed as a special consultant to the Maritime Criminal Investigation Unit. "You're working for the FBI now?" "Among others." "It's amazing how much good you can do when you know where all the bad guys hide their secrets and they trust you. They trust that I want to make amends for the things I've done, that I want to protect people instead of exploiting them." His voice grew serious. "You showed me that was possible, Sophia, even when I couldn't see it myself." The research vessel rocked gently in the swells as they stared at each other, 17 months of pain and longing crackling between them like electricity. "So what's the business proposition?" she asked, finally. "I need a marine biologist for what?" "To help identify environmentally sensitive areas that need protection from criminal activity. Drug runners and human traffickers don't care about coral reefs or endangered species habitats. But if those areas have federal environmental protection, it makes my job of stopping them much easier." It was brilliant, really. Use conservation efforts to create legal barriers that would impede criminal operations. "Do you want me to be your consultant? I want you to be my partner." In every sense of the word, Sophia felt her carefully rebuilt world tilting on its axis. "Rafael, I know I don't deserve a second chance. I know I hurt you, pushed you away when you were trying to save me." But Sophia, he reached out to touch. Her face, his thumb brushing away tears, she didn't realize she was shedding. "I never stopped loving you. Not for a single day. You threw me out. You said I destroyed everything. I was a fool. You saved everything that mattered, Isabella, me, your own soul. You made choices I was too cowardly to make." The rest of the research team had moved to the far end of the vessel, giving them privacy for a conversation that would determine the rest of their lives. "What about the FBI agent, Chen? Knows exactly where I am." "This operation has her full support." Rafael's smile turned rueful. "It turns out she's been hoping we'd find our way back to each other. Says we're both too stubborn and too dangerous to be left unsupervised." Despite every the pain, the betrayal, the months of loneliness, Sophia found herself laughing. She's not wrong. So, Rafael held out his hand to her, the same way he had on their wedding day, but somehow completely different. "Partners?" Sophia looked out at the endless blue ocean, thinking about the girl who had dreamed of swimming with dolphins and the woman who had learned that sometimes the most dangerous waters led to the greatest treasures. "Partners," she said, taking his hand. This time, when Rafael kissed her, it tasted like salt and redemption and the promise of adventures yet to come. Round them, the Caribbean waters sparkled with life and possibility. No longer hiding secrets, but protecting the future they would build together. The end.